One of the single biggest issues that folks often have when they want to play an RPG such as D&D, Pathfinder, or Call of Cthulhu is finding a group of people to play with. So today we're going to go over 7 different ways to find an RPG gaming group. Number 1, Discord. Many D&D or RPG Discord servers have LFG channels where people can post that they are looking for players or looking for a group. LFG basically stands for looking for group, and it's sort of the ubiquitous term that we use, though you'll often find looking for players used pretty frequently as well. And all you really need to do to utilize this technique is to first find a Discord that is based around role-playing games or D&D or whatever you happen to be looking for. You join the Discord. Usually there are links, join links and stuff. I know that we have a Discord and there's a link down in the description where you can join it. Once you join the Discord, you find their LFG channel. It's usually called LFG. Sometimes they'll put looking for groups. Sometimes they'll put looking for players. There are some variations on it that you might find. And then you just pop in there and you post that you're looking for a game and people will chime in. They might direct message you. I don't know. Every Discord usually has its own different rules and mechanisms for how they handle that thing. But it's usually not too complicated and not too hard, and it's always, well, I mean, maybe there are people that charge for their Discords, but I don't think that's a thing. So it's usually almost always free. There's actually, I think there is a person that charges for their Discord. So maybe they're not all free, but you get my drift. Now, it's likely that your favorite D&D or RPG YouTuber has a Discord server that you can join. I mean, I do, but I'm not your favorite. Don't flatter me. I know you like watching you like Dungeon Dudes, don't you? Or Dungeon Craft. I like Dungeon Craft a lot. If you're not watching Dungeon Craft stuff, you should go watch his channel because he has a lot of amazing, very, very good thoughts over there. Anyway, most D&D RPG YouTubers have Discord servers that you can join. I'm sure there are other gaming Discord servers out there too that have nothing to do with YouTubers. However, one thing that you should be aware of is that Discord communities are different. And I think folks who've been on Discords know what I'm talking about. Some communities are very helpful and friendly. Other communities are very toxic and they mostly thrive on ripping and tearing people down. So the type of Discord community that you join might be indicative of the type of people likely to be in a group created from people from that community. It's just kind of obvious, I think. So you're gonna have mature Discord communities, you're gonna have very immature Discord communities. Some might just focus around memes and throwing those things around and sharing other garbage. I don't like memes a whole lot, but if you do, that's cool. I'm not judging you. What was I doing? Was I ripping on memes? I don't know. Let's just leave that train of thought behind and go on to our next one. You also have some Discord communities that are going to be mostly players and others that are going to be mostly dungeon masters. So if you go to a Discord community that's mostly players, you're going to have lots of players all like, I need a game, I want a game, I need some dungeon masters, and then like the whole Discord community is mostly players and nobody's a dungeon master. So it's like, is this gonna work? But if you go to a Discord community that's mostly dungeon masters, guess what happens? Lots of people running games and maybe looking for players. Of course, there are also, dungeon masters are also players and players are also dungeon masters. So at some point there's a mix there, but I think you get what I'm saying. Now, for instance, on my Discord, the DM Lair Discord server, we have a looking for group channel where people find games all the time. Now, because my videos are mostly for game masters, you're probably gonna find the majority of people on my Discord are game masters. Even though we all know that even game masters like playing D&D too as a player, because as you're game mastering, you're still a player. You're still playing the game, you're just a dungeon master, you're not a player. Yeah? You got me. Anyway, it means, what I'm trying to get at here is that if you are a player who needs to find a group, there's probably a better chance of finding a group over on my Discord server just because there's lots of game masters over there that are probably running games. Whereas if you join a Discord that mostly just has players but few game masters, your chances of finding a GM running a game are probably fewer. The chances are fewer, the chances are lower, the chances are lower. Also, I would venture a guess that you're probably going to find a lot more mature people over on my Discord than you might on others. I've heard some stories, I have. And that often means you're going to find a higher caliber game being run as well. And yes, I am most certainly making a strong plug for joining my Discord if you're looking for a group, because I think your chances of finding a good group of mature players are pretty strong there. Also, my moderators and I work really hard to keep the environment family friendly so that you are not going to have a bunch of swarms of people swearing at you and insulting each other on my Discord. People who do that get banned pretty quickly. We try to keep the DM Lair Discord as friendly and welcoming as possible, There is, of course, a link below if you want to join our Discord. Now, if you're gonna start posting on Discords or forums or somewhere that you're looking for players or looking for a group, there are a couple terms you just want to be familiar with. Looking for players means that you are a game master looking for players. Looking for a group means that you are a player looking for a group to play in. Sometimes you're also gonna find looking for GM, which means that the group has already found themselves, but none of them want to be the game master, so they're looking for a brave soul that's gonna come run the game that they all want to play. Yeah, so you could look for that too. Actually, people that are posting that they're looking for a game master probably isn't that bad. I'm really just kind of, being a little bit exaggeration like today, so just ignore me. It's not that big of a deal. If the players have already found each other and looking for a game master, it's not a big deal. If you want to run a game, go, it's cool. Number 2, posters at a game shop. Many local game shops have a physical posting board where you can pin up a piece of paper to indicate that you are looking for a game, or if you are a game master looking for players. Obviously, you want to put relevant information on it if you are a GM or a player, the game systems you're interested in, the game system you're running, and contact information. Now, email is probably the safest way to go this day and age, although I have seen people putting up their phone numbers. I wouldn't give out my phone number. I think email is much safer. I've had people even respond to some of my postings and they want me to call them, and I'm just like, I don't want to call you, man. I want to send emails. This is probably just a generational thing. I guess I'm a young buck who doesn't like talking on the phone. I don't know, but email is just so much better. I'm not that young. I'm like 40 something. It's not that young, man. Now, of course, posting in game shops works best for in-person games because the only people who will see your poster are people who live in the area, right? Now, I have had excellent luck finding players with posters at game shops, and something that I do that is probably frowned on, but I do it anyway because it works, is that even after my game is full, I leave the poster up. Because you see, then every so often I get someone emailing me, but I just tell them that the game is full, but give them information about the game and ask if they'd like me to put them on the wait list just in case one of our regular players moves on and a spot opens up. Most of the time they say yes, and then what I do is I use that wait list of players as on-call players. Basically, when a regular player can't make a game session for whatever reason, I contact folks on the wait list to see if anyone wants to fill in for that game session. This serves double duty of getting someone to fill in, and it helps us vet the players in case a spot does open up in the future. You see, because many of the waitlist players have played a session or two with us before, we have a better idea of who might be a good fit for our group in the future if a permanent spot does open up. Now, this is probably also a good spot to talk about another consideration when looking for an RPG group to play with. If you are a game master willing to run the game and you're just looking for players, then you're gonna find those players pretty fast in my experience. However, if you're a player looking to play in a game, you might have a much longer search ahead of you. And why is this, might you ask? Well, it's kind of just simple math. There are always way more players looking for games than there are game masters willing to run games. And yes, in a typical RPG game, you usually do have 5 or so players and just 1 game master. However, I have a feeling that the ratio of players to game masters is much greater than 5-to-1. That means that there are always going to be more players looking for games than there are game masters running games, meaning that there aren't enough spots for everyone. So what is my point? I'll tell you what my point is, because I'm a nice guy like that. If you really want to play an RPG such as D&D, if you're willing to be a game master and run the game, you're gonna find players fairly fast and be able to play the game. You just have to be willing to be the game master is all. And also, I must add, just because you've never played the RPG before, doesn't mean you can't be the game master. Sure, you'll fumble through some stuff. Yes, it will be a learning experience. However, with perseverance, you'll learn that RPG system and get better at GMing. It's just a matter of time and not giving up. Now, my big piece of advice if you do this is to be upfront with your players. Let them know it's your first time. Either your first time actually playing the game or your first time game mastering, it doesn't matter. Because if you are upfront and let them know, most people will be understanding and gracious. Honesty is definitely the best course here. Oh, and if you're looking to learn more about dungeon mastering, I have an entire playlist filled with different topics that will help you out. In fact, if you're new to this channel, my entire channel is pretty much dedicated to helping dungeon masters, giving you the information and resources that you need to learn how to be a better dungeon master, learn how to dungeon master in the first place, or just to make your life easier, have less prep time, be more prepared for your games, and just maybe, improve the quality of your games or something. I don't know. It's just stuff that I've learned as a dungeon master since I've been doing it, which is like, I think probably about 20 years, over 20 years, something like that. And it's just things that I've learned that have helped me that might help you too. Number 3, forums. Okay, so there are various online forums where you can post that you are looking for a group or looking for players. And depending upon the forum, you can find both in-person and online games. Okay, the first one I'm gonna talk about here is Reddit LFG. It's literally just one of the subreddits. It's like /LFG. It's pretty simple. I'm gonna have a link down below. Don't worry, there'll be links down below to everything that I'm talking about, so you'll be able to find them. Now, this is the forum I recommend. If you're gonna go to an online forum besides a Discord, this is the one I'm gonna recommend because I have personally had excellent results finding players here. Now, despite much of Reddit being a cesspool of humanity, in my personal opinion experience, almost all of the players I found through Reddit LFGs were normal, decent human beings. I chalk this up in part to herd mentality, also known as when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and the lack of accountability of anonymous online posting. I mean, Reddit just seems in general to have developed a pretty awful culture in many of the subreddits that I've been. Obviously, I'm sure there are probably subreddits that aren't that bad and that are much more positive. This is just my experience. It hasn't been pretty. So yeah. However, it seems like when you take those people out of that culture and put them in a real life setting, such as an in-person D&D game, many of them turn out to be just normal, friendly human beings. At least this is my running theory based upon my experience, because all of the players that I have found on Reddit, except for one, were great people. And now all of my players and former players are wondering who that one player was. I'm not gonna tell you. I'm not gonna tell you. It would just not be good form, I suppose, to mention in a public setting the name of the person that it was. That's not cool. Can't do that. Everybody's gonna be like private messaging me now. Luke, who was it? Now, the great thing about Reddit LFG is that you can find both in-person and online games using it. And you can find all different types of RPG games, from D&D, Call of Cthulhu, whatever you're looking for, Pathfinder, it doesn't matter. There are groups out there looking for players, looking for game masters, and it does it all. I personally use the Reddit LFG for in-person games, and like I said, it worked great. Within just a few weeks, I had enough players to run 2 D&D campaigns. And that's what I did. I ran 2 different campaigns, because I'm a brave soul like that. And of course now I run like 4, so it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, all right, online forums, the next place you might go is D&D Beyond. They do have a looking for players and groups sub forum that I found. Now, obviously, I feel like you're only going to find D&D games here, and they're probably going to be mostly online since D&D Beyond is a platform for online play. But it's a resource that's out there, so you can probably find a game there. There's also a forum called RPGgeek.com that I found. Now, they do have various different forums on there that you can go to depending on what you're looking for. For instance, if you go to the play by forum, that's where you can post for playing by post. If you don't know what play by post is, you just literally make a post and other people make posts, and you don't play in real time, you just play by post. It's not super common, I don't feel like, these days, but I used to do it like back after I graduated from college, when I was living in Central America. I had no choice but to play by post. Like, the people down there were not receptive to D&D. It was kind of like the 80s satanic panic still existed down there. So I couldn't play D&D with folks down there. Instead, I had to play by post. But play by post was still lots of fun. Now, there's another forum there called Play by VoIP. I have no idea what VoIP stands for, but I looked into that forum, and that's, I guess, where you post if you want to play by virtual tabletop, like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or something like that. And there's another subforum there called Conventions and Meetups, which is for in-person games. So if you want to play in person, that's where you post. These names they have attributed to their little subforums make no sense to me, which is why I'm deciphering them for you. Now, the good thing about that forum is that it looks like you can post for all different types of game systems and probably find the one that you're looking for. Another place that I found that I thought was pretty interesting was a site called Start Playing. Now, all of the games there that I could see look like they are paid games. So that means that if you want to play there, you're going to be paying to play. That's, you pay money, you play in a D&D game or Call of Cthulhu game or a Pathfinder game or whatever. And it looks like they have tons of different game systems as well. The games are all online, I must mention. There are no in-person games, it's all online. Now, this is probably a great time for an aside about paid and unpaid games, because in your search for a group to play with, it's like a teleprompter. I can't even read the teleprompter. I'm crazy. Anyway, in your search for a group to play with, you're going to run across both of these, paid games and unpaid games. Actually, it's like probably half of this stuff is from a teleprompter, the other half is me just talking. As you know, I have a big one of these. I use it a lot. Anyway, obviously, if you're broke, you're probably gonna have no choice, because if you're broke, you can't pay to play in a D&D game or a Call of Cthulhu game, right? You just kind of look for the free ones. But if you have a bit of cash, then you have a decision to make. Now, the theory goes that a paid RPG game should offer a better game experience because, well, the players are paying to play in it, and thus the game master should be fairly good to run a fun game. A game that people are paying for should be fun, right? You'd figure that, right? And the converse, naturally, is that a free game is perhaps not as good. At least this is what one would assume based upon surface evidence and surface logic. However, it is definitely not always true. You could easily have a game master running a paid game just because they want to make some money running an RPG. Their skill level or ability to run a good game may have nothing to do with the fact that they are charging to play in the game. You could easily pay to play in a game that sucks. So be very aware of that. Also, compounding this problem is that I am 100% confident that there is zero vetting processes being done to ensure that a game master is good before they begin charging for a game. The best that you're likely to get is a review system where players can rank game masters and leave reviews on their game. Then at least you can see what their track record is before deciding to play in a game. That is, of course, assuming that the system isn't being scammed and the GMs aren't creating fake accounts to play in their paid games and then leave false reviews. Because if they do this, it will look like they have a good track record, providing the social proof that players considering paying for a game might need before they decide to fork over their hard-earned cash. Finally, I must say that just because a game is free doesn't mean that it isn't good. There are thousands of amazing game masters running free games out there. Do not think for a second that just because it's free means that it isn't that good. That is just not true. Which is kind of a segue into another point. There is a very large segment of GMs and players out there that vehemently believe that games should always be free, and that it is an abomination for a GM to charge to play in their game. You see, this pay-to-play thing is kind of new, and many older, experienced RPG gamers like me grew up where it was just normal to run games for free, and we continue to do so. So these folks will not charge to play in their games, and because of their experience, there is a higher probability that their games are good. Not necessarily, of course. Experience doing something does not equate to skill in all circumstances. We've all had that one teacher that's been teaching for like forever and they're just not very good at it. We know we all have. I'm like picking on teachers. You could pick on any career or any industry and it would be pretty similar. Anyway, I'm probably going to be making a future video discussing this pay-to-play movement and whether it is good or bad. But until I get around to that, please let us know in the comments what you think and why. Remember, it does no one any good to state an opinion if you don't also justify your rationale for it. And I say that because there are a lot of people out there that hate the idea of pay-to-play games. And they are so strongly opposed to it that they will like strangle you if they can track you down for paying to play in a game or to making people pay to play in your game. However, some of them don't have any real reasons to back up why they hate it so much. And I'd like to know what those reasons actually are. Like, tell me why it's such a bad thing to charge someone to play in a game. Anyway, that should spark off a nice little debate down in the comments. Number 4, social listings. Basically, social networks such as Facebook and Meetup are good places to find a group. That's what I've been told. Never actually found one there before, but you know, many people have. That's what they tell me at least. I mean, for instance, on Facebook, there is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition group that has a look for players area. I have no idea why it's not called looking for players, because look for players is just rather odd. Of course, there may have been a character limit, and that's the closest they could get. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, that group is massive active with nearly 180,000 members. So if you want to find a D&D game, that's probably not a bad place to start. I imagine that most of those games, of course, will be online games too, but it's possible that you could find an in-person game there too. On the other hand, Meetup would work best for finding in-person groups local to your area, because that's kind of what the site is all about, to organize in-person meetings of various types. Now, something to consider too when using any of these methods of finding groups to play RPGs with is that your mileage is going to vary. Not only might you personally find some of these methods to be better than others, but you're also going to find that the quality of games you find is going to differ. And what I mean is that sometimes you might find a good game, and other times the games you're going to get in might really suck. This is just the nature of the beast. My recommendation is to keep trying and don't give up until you find a gaming group that is a good fit for you and that you enjoy playing with. If you're like new to this and it's your first time trying to find a D&D game and you go somewhere and you find a group and the group is horrible and you hate it, please don't take that as a judgment on the entire hobby as itself. Groups are different. Players are different, game masters are different. There's probably a group out there that doesn't suck like that one does, that you really enjoy. Unfortunately, sometimes it just takes a little bit of work to find that group. By the way, if you're finding the information in this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let us know what method you've found to be the most effective for finding RPG groups to play with. Number 5, conventions. Now, if you want to play in person, then conventions are practically a guaranteed way to get into an RPG game. I mean, you basically just buy a pass to the convention. They usually cost around $50 for the weekend pass or $15 to $20 for a day pass in my experience. And then you sign up for games you want to play in. There's usually an online listing of RPG games being offered at a convention, and when you buy your pass, you'll be able to sign up for those games. Now, some conventions make you pay extra to sign up to particular games, but many of them just have a flat fee for the pass, and then you can play in whatever games you want to. Now, a big pro for playing at conventions is that it is normal for the players to not have played a given RPG system before, so game masters are usually quite willing to teach and explain how things work. This has always been my experience, and I've played in lots of convention games. If you want to learn a new game system and you've never played before, going to a convention is one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion. This is in fact what I do. Since D&D 5th edition is the game I play all the time, when I go to conventions, I almost never play D&D. It's always Call of Cthulhu or some cyberpunk game or a new system that I want to check out. Now, pro tip here though, make sure you sign up for games in advance. If you just show up to a convention and buy a pass at the door, you're almost certainly going to find that most of the spots in RPG games are full, especially if you want to play in a D&D game. Those games especially fill up really fast. In my experience, you need to buy your pass early and sign up online if you want to play in an RPG or D&D game at a convention. Otherwise, you risk showing up and then not being able to find a game to play in. This actually happened to me recently. I missed the sign up time for games, or I was too late to it, and I went to the convention and then there were really no games open to play in, and I was kind of bored most of the convention. So, don't be lazy like me. Sign up way in advance and you're gonna have way more fun. Another little benefit of conventions too is that there are lots of tabletop games such as Catan that you can sign up to play with groups as well. And I love tabletop games. Oh, and finally, since many times a convention is local to you, there's a chance you might meet people who would be willing to form an ongoing in-person game with you after the convention ends. I've never tried to do that myself, but it is a possibility, I suppose. Number 6, virtual tabletops. Virtual tabletops, also called VTTs, sometimes have their own forums where you can find groups. I'm not familiar with all the VTTs that are out there, but I do know for certain that Roll20 has looking for groups listings. If you have a VTT that you prefer, you could check to see if it has a looking for group forums on it. Because here's the thing, if you go to the LFG forums for a given virtual tabletop such as Roll20, you're almost guaranteed that all the games will be run using that virtual tabletop. I mean, maybe not, but probably. So if you decide to go this route, my recommendation would be to research the different virtual tabletops a bit first to determine which one you'd most like to play on before using its LFG forums to find a game. I mean, you can probably find videos on YouTube that compare the various virtual tabletops, making this task a bit easier. My own personal experience is limited to Roll20, so I can't speak to other virtual tabletops, but I can tell you this, despite Roll20 probably being the virtual tabletop with the largest user base, it cannot be the best one. I'm 100% certain that it's the largest because it was probably first, and not because it is currently the best. You see, Roll20 is an older platform, and it has not aged well. In my opinion, and the best way to summarize Roll20 is that it gets the job done. But you're going to experience frustrations along the way. And my complaint has nothing to do with it feeling old and not being video gamey like many of the newer virtual tabletops. To me, it's clear that Roll20 is putting almost zero effort into fixing ongoing issues such as dynamic lighting eating up tons of system resources and improving the platform. But they did just come out with a recent update. They gave a couple of few new things after like, I don't know, 4 years of using it. There was like finally some quality of life improvements. It's like, wow, go team. That's some real stellar effort right there. I think they're freaking out because they think that D&D Beyond's forthcoming virtual tabletop is really going to be a strong competitor. Now they're like, okay, we got to buckle down and really make things better around here or we're screwed. That's another video for another time, sorry. So anyway, yeah, Roll20 mostly feels like they've just kind of been relying upon their prominent position in the industry and just kind of resting on their laurels, and they're mostly in maintenance mode. Now that might be changing a little bit as competition gets a little bit more vigorous for them. Otherwise, it could be a great option for you. For me personally, I don't need a 3D video gaming virtual tabletop for my games, but I do expect a virtual tabletop to work properly and make continuous improvements to their platform that make running and playing games better. Number 7, ask your friends. Now, you might be wondering, gee Luke, why is this point dead last? I mean, aren't RPGs amazing games that friends and family could have a blast playing together? And yes, yes they are, and yes, they could. However, if you're watching this video, my guess is you've probably already tried asking your friends and family to play, and it didn't work. So leading with asking them would probably not help you a whole lot, would it? Now, maybe they didn't want to play and you couldn't beg them enough to get them to agree. Or maybe your schedules just didn't align. Or maybe you all got together to play and you discovered that, wow, even though I love them all and they are my friends and family, dang, they aren't the best players and our games weren't that much fun. Because playing with friends and family does bring a few issues along with it. I mean, the first being that they are friends and family. If one of them turns out to be a problem player, it could be really difficult to deal with because you also have to consider your real life relationship to one another. For instance, if someone I met on Reddit turns out to be a bad player and they don't change even after I talk with them and try to like get them to, not be such a horrible person, I can just remove them from the game and we all move on. However, imagine if your best friend or your significant other turns out to be a bad player. They won't change after you speak with them and they are really bringing the game down. Wow. Good luck removing them from the group and not having it affect your relationship. The next big thing that I've noticed in games where the players are friends and family is that often one or two people are the ones that really want to play the RPG and are invested in it, and the others are less interested in the RPG itself and are really more there for the social aspect of things, just hanging out. So what can happen in groups like this is that one or two players are taking the game more seriously, whereas the other players are really just kind of screwing around. Now, what you get here is a misalignment of expectations and what the various players are looking to get out of the game. So, players who want to play the game and have fun doing so, and other players who don't really care about the game and just want to have fun in general. So what this can lead to is 2 or more serious players enjoying the game less because the other players just won't take the game seriously, like whatever that means. And then the other players are left wondering why those 2 players won't just loosen up and have fun. Now, you're probably thinking that I'm just totally putting down the idea of playing with friends and family, and I am not. I'm not. There are likely thousands of RPG groups out there composed of friends and family, and they are all loving it and wouldn't have it any other way. I honestly don't know how frequently those 2 issues I mentioned might come up. I just know that they do come up. I have experienced them myself, and they are things to be aware of. I think some people are probably gonna flame me down in the comments for even bringing this up, for even saying that playing with friends and families might be a bad idea or might have issues that might need to be dealt with. I don't know. Around here, I like telling people the truth about how things actually are conforming to reality. I'm not gonna sugarcoat things and just tell you to go do it and there are no gonna be any issues, because there might be. But of course there might not be, and it might be wonderful. I don't know. I just want you to be aware of potential problems that do exist, potentially, and might come up, potentially. Of course, if you're looking for players through any of the other methods I've mentioned, there's a possibility that you're gonna find players there that aren't a good fit for your group too. I mean, there is a risk any way you slice it. Now, if there's a method of finding RPG groups that I missed, please let us know about it in the comments. If you'd like to join the DM Lair Discord and use our Looking for Players channel to find a group, click on the screen right down here. Or if you'd like to become a Dungeon Master but aren't sure where to start, check out my Dungeon Mastering 101 playlist right here. It covers tons of topics to help you out. That's it. We're done. Thank you. Goodbye.